Dearly beloved, we're gathered here in Gretna Green for the start of stage 4 of the Sun Life Great Race. It was Katabi of Morocco who were first to the tape in Annan yesterday. Today, the Great Race heads for the border. The Kenyans don't stand on ceremony. It was just another day's work for Kosgei yesterday. For the pack, it's a case of keeping the legs going. The crack. Hello, well, we haven't been blessed with good weather, but we're inches from the border, heading out of Scotland into England today. Gretna Green. Moments over the years, but I don't think romance is on the minds of the athletes in the Sun Life Great Race. They're far too tired. Kosgei and Katabi have been pounding it and harder than they want to. But there's no let-up in this race. Today they have 17 miles to cover. So, get me to the start on time. Stage 4. Well, the Met Office say it's going to be very windy. We're going to get the back end of Hurricane Gustav today. But at breakfast, I must say, some of the athletes were saying that Kosgei, and they really have to get the reins on him somehow. He leads the field by 1:19. In second place, Katabi. Interesting to see how the Moroccan will go today. He's run very well so far and shown a lot of character. Foreign runners dominating the top 10. Worrying is that Steve Brace of Wales, the top Brit. In fact, it could be said he's got blisters on his blisters. And Jerry Kiernan too from Ireland. In 10th place, he had a bandage on his foot at breakfast. Few more aches and pains too. Despite the fact there's a long way to go, the furious pace has already taken its toll. Is it daunting to day after day?
Honestly, no. You just got to go out and do it, haven't you? I mean, it's if you approach, you just got to accept. You just got to go out there and run it, and as simple as that.
Are all the athletes feeling aches and pains and getting?
In a bit now, and I think today will be a crunch for quite a few of them. There's a few minor injuries that are going around, and I think maybe we'll be all right.
How do you get the legs going day after day?
Then the pain eases off and it comes back as soon as you finish. So someone once told me that there's nothing worse than oxygen. And it's true, you run, and because you start working, and I think the fact that you're in a sort of race situation pumps the adrenaline round, and then that makes any other pain sort of disappear.
Do these massages just help the wear and tear on the body?
The legs build up a lot of waste product for a stage, just to jog, for a few minutes, just so that the, sort of substances that can be rubbed out, and that certainly does help. But again, there is a psychological aspect. You feel that you're looking after yourself. You're not just the fact that you're doing something. That has to feel that you're helping your performance.
So today's route, a 17-mile course taking us from Gretna Green to Carlisle. 0.2 miles will be a neutralised zone, so the pace won't hot up till they're over the border, racing through passport control into England. Over the Hadrian's Wall coming up at around the 16-mile mark. And the finish, City Gates in Carlisle. That's stage 4. 101 lined up today. There was an amount of Scottish rain there. The legs well and truly warmed up. I must say, though, there wasn't a bride in sight. And away they went, 4.2 in a control. The border. They left Scotland after 1 mile. They amused themselves on the way. John Graham on the phone to his stockbroker. Running shoes, no doubt, getting through this race. Mike McLeod and Kevin Forster watching themselves on television. Immediate action replays. Look. The checkered flag goes in, so now they're away and they can really race. On.
Waiting for all the traffic to go through.
Now, the first major casualty of the stage today. In the race, who was the leading British runner, I should say. And there's Mrs. Brace and Brace Jr. to add some support. Steve had been going ever so well. Picked up a bad blister in Stockholm. Now, but there'll be another day for Steve, I'm sure. 5 miles and he pulled out of today's stage. So we join the race at 9.5 miles. There's the leading group. Let's join and Tom McNabb.
And we just saw Vladimir Kotov there of Russia, number 101 a few moments ago. He's lying fourth in the race, only 2 minutes 20. And there he is there, right in the front. 2 minutes 28 seconds behind the leader, Kip Kosgei, and that's very, very close in the race of this distance. Wearer of the yellow yellow vest, 15 seconds down the road off the lead, 15 seconds off the lead, wearing the yellow vest of the... Had some absolutely marvelous runs in the last 3 days. But the question in the tents today was, well, can he keep it up? I think so. And just tracking him is the young runner Delmir dos Santos, 24-year-old. He's from the Boulder Running Club in who are playing it very cagey over these first 4 stages. A lot of good runners. And just behind his colleague, number 75, Lakbir Khanmi of Morocco.
It looks like number 101 there, Vladimir Kotov, is going to put a lot of pressure on everybody today. And I noticed that some of the have made a big effort to get up the front today. There's 3 or 4 of them certainly in the leading pack. The Kosgei is obviously covering the moves, watching everything that's going on. One of the Boulder lads is down there with him. It looks like number 74 there, he's Sebtoy. He was up in the front and he obviously fancies his chances. He's pushing it along there with Kotov. Seem to be stringing the bunch along. Yeah, Kosgei here, he's moving along through the bunch now, getting leaders. He's taking his time today to have got up there at such a late stage. Usually in the previous stage he's been up there very early on, but he's through sort of almost quite casually for him.
It's interesting there, we've got number 93, who hasn't featured very strongly so far, Mike O'Reilly, again of the Boulder Road Runners Club. So they're...
Older lads have sat back for the first few days, and they seem to be making a determined effort to get up there. They seem to be marking Kosgei and following in his footsteps, seeing how he goes today.
Three days, really.
So heading toward the 10-mile marker, and there he is, the very familiar yellow vest of Kosgei. I make that 5:06 for the last mile. Tom, if that's correct, and my stopwatch says it is, how can they just quickly move up a gear?
Down to 4:50 if they wanted, Ray. These are kings of distance, and they're really clattering it out again today. I think this cycle been very useful, of course, because this enables the runners to spin out the muscle glycogen, which of course is the fuel that enables.
Well, what about this Kenyan? the very talkative athlete. I wondered whether the weather conditions would affect the way he ran.
The weather is okay, and hope we'll do well.
It's a long stage today.
Yeah, it is.
Be for this one.
Well, I don't know. I can't tell now. Until I run, when I'm on the way, so when I'll know.
Is that a question of how you're feeling are performing?
Well, how I feel.
How quickly after the start do you know whether you feel able, as if you want to, push the pace on?
Maybe at the middle of the race or somewhere.
You're working so hard, everyone keeps saying, how long can this man keep it going?
I don't know.
Well, he's trying to read his body, and that's what all these runners are trying to do. And the question always is whether he's reading poetry or blank. And, he's flowing along very nicely today. Clearly feels right. He's one of the problems I think in this, Ian, is that you've got to often got that stiffness out. You're fluid again.
Yes, you have got to do that. Actually, it's very true. But I feel, which is what Kip Kosgei is saying. Now he'll sort of, if he's feeling good, he'll run hard. If he's feeling bad. Obviously, for the last few days, he's felt pretty good.
Now, there's Jerry Kiernan in an unenviable position, but minutes 15 seconds. That's right up in the race of this length. But Jerry's in a sort of in clusters of runners.
Good opportunity here to have a look at the state of the race overall after stage 3. There's Kosgei out in front. Katabi, Soviet athlete. Looking further down, Jerry. Bill Bedell's there too, forsaking his beef and sheep farming. Look in there. Dos Santos of Brazil making a move today. Kevin Forster. Moment. There's Dave Moorcroft, there's John Graham. The British lads really just trying to time their run, as it were. Some experience in there. That between them, I'm sure they won't mind me saying that.
Yes, running very well, I think. Young man, 24 years of age. He's running very fluidly, very well indeed. He's well back, actually, in the general classification, isn't he?
But he's obviously decided to sort of bide his time over the first few days, and it looks like he's going to give it a go today. Lads on the front at the moment, the Moroccans, they were in there yesterday fighting for a place. They was on the front sort of. It looks like they're going to have another crack at it today. Seb Toy was a very early leader pushing along yesterday. He's up there today. Kip Kosgei. And it certainly doesn't seem to bother him.
Second are the Russians, and the third are the Algerians. That's in total time.
Quite a few packed there in that leading group. This is just about as close as we've seen so far in this Sun Life Great Race. Heading towards that 11-mile marker, there's the route ahead of us. And then into Carlisle. There they go through 11 miles now. I make that 5:10 for the last mile. Jerry Helm looking at his watch. They certainly can't detect any change. These fellas do that.
Oh, they've got an inner sort of muscular clock that tells them. They feel the rhythm changing. But it's interesting that these last 3 miles have been done in 15 minutes 20. After 3 hard days in this Sun Life Great Race. Pretty classy running indeed. But the man I think very interesting here is number 140 there. That's Jerry Helms. I think he's going to be a very dangerous man indeed.
Tom, I was talking to Jerry Helm this morning. He's a very well-known runner on Merseyside. He's a very well-known runner anywhere, of course. Days, pacing himself, making sure he doesn't do too much too soon. I asked him how he was finding the race.
As it goes on, I'm finding it a bit easier. Yesterday I felt quite fluent, but the course was kind of... But also, people are starting to change. We're expecting changes, and changes are taking place. I feel about the same now as I did at the start. A little bit of tough on... But today's a different prospect at 17 miles. Maybe a time to back off a little bit and get back to speeding up when the distance goes down. Noticed, well, of course, a lot of the conservative UK athletes are still taking it very steady. I mean, I'm noticing each other at times are starting to break up and come drifting back a little bit. And so I, for one, am expecting to sort of and hopefully some of the others come back.
We're going to see an equalling of standards over the next few days, you think?
Yes, and then maybe a reversaling, yeah, I don't know. My point of view, and from a lot of other people's point of view, be a recuperative stage. 4 miles. And I wouldn't think anyone would be pushing it too hard, but I wouldn't tell Mr. Cosgrave anything.
Well, there we see number Canme of Morocco, and he seems to have made a bit of a break, rather surprising.
Yes, it is surprising, but I think today a much kinder pace than we've had for the last 2 days, certainly. Hence, we have a lot more people in that big chasing. Quite good, thinks he can press on and perhaps slip away and maybe get a stage win. But I certainly think they're okay. So maybe we'll see a bit of a surge over the last couple of miles, I think, Tom.
Yes, he's... As we said yesterday, there's a sort of psychological thread that binds runners together. People lose heart and they accept the fact that they're behind, don't they?
Oh, yes. You give somebody 50 or 60 metres down very, very quickly. It's almost out of sight, out of mind. Especially if this guy happens to start turning around corners and they lose sight of him, you'll find him.
So it all depends very much on the terrain. If, in fact, it's a straight situation, there's a feeling that they can make contact. Whereas, in fact, if it's a bending, well, the man is.
Very much so.
Leading up to 12 miles, there's a little bit of a... It straight away. They're through it. I reckon the last mile was in 5 minutes. Do you think Cosguy's looking strong again, Tom?
Yes, I think very swift running indeed. He was 15:29 for the last 3 miles. That's an average of about 5:10. It's speeding up. So hill here, of course, which again is a skill in its own. The ability to run downhill. It's also a dangerous point because the hamstrings have to pay out. And if you wang a hamstring, it's downhill, isn't it, Ian?
Well, it certainly is. The second stage proved that. I think after all the very fast downhill running that was that day has certainly done some damage. There was probably more people stiff and having problems with their legs after stage 2 than there has been anywhere else. See, as Cosguy's gone straight to the front again, he's pushing it along and stringing the bunch out. But it looks like Delmere Sand is going to have a go today. He's covering every move he's making.
Yes, but he's 9 minutes 10 seconds down on general classification. So really work hard to pick out a few minutes out of this race and some of the other runners. Obviously, if Kip wins it, he can't gain.
Yeah, but it looks to me that Santos' stage win today He's got another one of his Boulder colleagues there. I think it's O'Reilly that's with him, and it seems pretty obvious.
So Kip Kosgei out in front. From Brazil, Delmir dos Santos there. And I bet Kosnai knows. Welcome back to the Sun Life Great Race. There's a familiar sight, the yellow vest of Kip. Get back to our commentary team, Ian Stewart and Tom McNabb.
Yes, Kip Kosgei in a familiar position, out in front, behind him the 24 Running Club Colorado, and one of the less well-known runners, number 9 Boulder Running Club. There's young Dos Santos trying to make a break, so he's going for the £1,000.
Definitely got his eyes set on winning this stage. I think one of the most noticeable things today is that the runners up the front, other than a couple of the leaders, a completely new batch of runners. They must be the guys that have sort of the marathon types, the mile stage. And the way they shot across, they've opened this break. Santos has made the initial surge immediately. They're now locked in battle between them, and it seems if they spread the field out yet again, they've probably got, what, 20, 25 metres.
They made a big hit, and they've just left the rest of the guys wallowing behind them now. So if they confirm this and just keep pressing on, then we're looking at the first to Carlisle, no question of it.
And young Santos, doesn't he look good? He looks very cool. It's almost as if he's just and waited for this long stage and decided, yes, I'll wait till they're all a little bit tired, and perhaps the 17 miles will suit him better than 12-mile stages.
Yes, he's really put it in hard here, there's no question of that, but Kosgei looks excellent. He looks just as strong. There was a question mark against him if he could handle 17 miles, even including a 4.2 mile neutral zone, but it's quite clear that he can handle it quite comfortably.
Yes, I'd have thought, mind you, the neutral zone must have helped him. I wouldn't have thought he'd have fancied the idea of racing flat out for 17 miles. That first 4 miles was neutralised.
To the 13-mile mark now. It looks to me like they've quickened. We'll give you a split in it when they go through. They're stretching out. Through they go now. Tom, this is madness, surely.
Well, it may seem like madness, but it doesn't seem like madness to them. They're delighted with it, and they're piling. Oh, the fact that it's a downhill stretch, Ian.
Well, it probably does do that, but the other factor is that they've been running very, very till now. They've probably been running, I don't know, 5.15 mile pace average, which, when you consider what they've been running for the last 2 days and what they are actually capable of pace, it probably isn't to you and I, but the speed they're running at now is probably more like what they should have been doing.
And Dave Moorcroft is really struggling. He's well down, of course, at 10 minutes down, but of course that doesn't. Cadence is gone, his stride length is gone, and he is about 1.5 miles back from the leaders now. And every stride is an agony for Dave.
Yes, he's running there alongside Kevin Taylor. He probably wouldn't ordinarily do. He certainly looks like he's in pain. His legs look very, very stiff. The 17 miles used to doing that sort of running in his track sort of days. So he is obviously struggling quite badly there.
But there's Kip again, pushing on 4 days into this Sun Life Great Race, and Kip is back, no break yet. Having a quick look back to see where he is, but he's still there, staying right up with him and running very well indeed.
And this is what they're running for. If they £1,000 for the winner, all the way down to in 10th place, £1,000 to finish 10th in the Sun Life Great Race. But each day there's prize money too, £1,000 to win, and you get £100, a lot of money to win.
Yes, and yesterday there was only 1 metre between £1,000 for the stage. Pounds further back in the case of Katabi, finishing second to Kip here, who I've never seen a finish like that before in a race. Terribly close, but way back there's Dave Moorcroft. He's even been left by Taylor, and he is really struggling.
Yes, he looks quite dreadful there. He's obviously in quite some pain with his legs by the look of things, Tom. He's going downhill, which would hurt his legs even more, or going up the hill.
But back with the leaders. There's young 24-year-old Delmer Dos Santos. He's really staying with the leader. There's no question Kip is having to work hard to try and push away from this young lad. And it's interesting that he's actually tried to get away to stay behind him. He's actually, you know, pressing all the time.
I think the way this is looking at the moment, he's looking extremely similar to the one we had yesterday, but Dos Santos is watching every move Kip Kosgei makes, and he's going to take it and to surprise him and perhaps make a move across him and get away a long way out before the finish, I should think.
I think he's got to go a long way before the about 300 meters, and that means probably 60 odd seconds, maybe 65 seconds. But there's 2 miles behind the leaders, and Dave Moorcroft, and he's really suffering. You can see every stride is trouble for him. Rhythm's gone. Control the balance of Kip Kosgei, and Dos Santos equally just behind him.
It's like Dos Santos is a bit of a man with a mission here, Tom. He's almost doing the same sort of thing that and dogging him along the road. But I think he's keener on escaping earlier on. He must know about Kip Kosgei's sprint finish. I mean,
Right, away they head towards the 14-mile mark. Look at the time again when they go through. 5 minutes for the last mile. But Tom, I'm not sure this is about pace now. I think this is about winning. I think it's going to be a real battle.
Yes, I think as Katabi tried to do yesterday to the last couple of hundred meters, because this fella really can dig in. I can dig in very, very hard in sprint finishes. He's shown that over the last couple of days. So he's really got to go away, I think. I say a mile to go and try to stretch Kosgei. Take the sprint finish out of those powerful legs.
Running behind him like that, he'll try and just make a surprise move where he maybe gains 20 or 30 metres and then sort of holds him off and tries to escape. Miles to go here, Tom. He's certainly looking very good, though. He's running very, very easy behind him at the moment.
Well, they're both looking good, and as I say, Kosgei has shown that he really can put in big digs at the end. He seems to have a lot of sap on those legs, a lot of dig left, and from him as soon as he possibly feels he can manage it.
Public Services team just turns round and says hello. He pulls tongues back at him, Dos Santos. Now, there's a lot of prize money for the teams as well. There's the Kenyan Public Service team out in front. The Soviet team in second, Portuguese side in third. To ninth place, Red Counters Athletic Club. They're a team based in the Merseyside area. Is what they're running for. £20,000 for the first team prize, all the way down to £2,000 in 10th place. Money they'd love to get their hands on.
These boys are really clattering it out towards Carlisle. Well, him completely.
Well, Kosgei is looking good, but Dos Santos here has moved alongside him and he's almost playing him at his own game. He keeps running alongside, nipping him behind there, sheltering perhaps from the wind, and as I say that, Kosgei's looking right behind him. Very, very close to him. He obviously isn't happy with that sort of situation. As we've seen in the past, he doesn't like these guys tagging on behind him. A lot of the Europeans, of course, that's one of their favourite tricks. Dos Santos there, of course, he just sort of keeps nipping there, nipping back out, having surge.
But he's made his surge here and he's going away with about 2 miles to go. The question is, can he keep going and keep moving away and stretch that thread a bit?
Well, if he's made the decision to go all the way to the finish now, he's committed himself, he's put his cards on the table, and it's a question of whether Kip Kosgei loses his head or whether he gives chase.
But he is pulling him in. So he caught very sensibly. Kosgei has not made a sudden spurt to pull him in. He just not uneconomic in any way, just slowly pulled him in, hasn't used up too much energy, and he's back in the race again.
Mature sort of distance runner. Many youngsters would possibly have panicked there and tried to close that gap down.
Back, well, 13 miles, we're just seeing him pass. There's Dave Moorcroft, and Dave is really hurting bad, and anyone is ever feels like you're out in limbo land, all you can feel is your own pain. Well, these guys are probably feeling a bit of pain now, but they're out in front shooting for 1,000. Just trailing Kosgei there, as he has for the last few miles, moved up beside him, and he's looking good. They're both good.
Well, I think after that initial little surge that he's had, Dos Santos is going to have to go back and think again, and perhaps detect any more little which nobody else has managed to do over the last few days.
But there we 100 runners stretched out over 2 miles. Long, thin coil of runners. And Kosgei.
Mark, they've crossed it. Looking at the time, 5:08 it says on the stop. Away again. Now look back there, you can't see the third place runner. We're waiting for them to come up the hill.
Looking at the likely winners in one of these two, Dos Santos or Kosgei.
Now the race really is on. Join us after the break to find out who wins. Just under 2 miles to go of stage 4. Just under 2 miles to go of stage 4 of the Sun Life Great leading duo making their way towards Carlisle. Tom, what are they thinking here now? Is the adrenaline taking over?
Well, I know what young Dos Santos make my bid, because I don't want to sprint against this guy a couple of 100 meters. He's tried to get away before, and each time he's been, and I'm sure he'll try and make another bid for it. If I were him and I had any gas left, that's what I'd try to do. But this chap has looked, the leader, Kosgei, has looked absolutely 3 days, and it's going to be very tough business indeed to get ahead of him and pick up the £1,000 for the stage. tracking pack, and they're not pulling in any way. They're way back, about 400 metres back. That would be about 75, 87.
But I would have thought Dos Santos here has got to be thinking he's got to make a significant move, possibly over about the last mile marker, and make his mind up, steel himself to deciding he's going to have to run flat out all the way to the finish to try and run the... I can't see him winning a sprint finish against him.
But it takes a lot of willing, doesn't it, to really hurt? I mean, after all, he's hurting now. It's where your lungs are screaming. It's not just your legs, your whole body's screaming for you to stop.
Well, it does do, but he's 2.5 miles back from the finish, that is. That is often a thing in distance running, whereby if you and go and hit him again. So, you know, that gives him about a mile, I would have thought.
And about a mile or about 5 minutes back, we're looking at a midsection of the race, and these lads are 5 minutes 40 miles, but at the front they are striding out at 5 minutes pace or inside, and that's Kosgei in the lead by young Dos Santos.
Yes, it's very noticeable again that Kosgei, whenever he gets onto anything that's slightly uphill, he's Dos Santos here seems to be handling it a lot better than Katabi did yesterday. He's just sort of biding his time again. Alongside him, I think, just to have a glance at him and see if it's perhaps time to get his skates on and get out of there.
But perhaps a bit of encouragement for the middle age, looking towards the menopause. There we've got 20 years difference almost between these two. 43 for Kosgei and 24 for young Dos Santos. It out makes me feel a bit better, I can tell you that much.
Yes, but I don't think Dos Santos is losing sight. Certainly got his eyes set on a stage win here. I should imagine that the Boulder boys have sort of primed him up there at all.
Just about 400 yards to go now to the 16-mile mark, and that gives us just 1 mile. Close in on the centre of Carlisle to the finish of this 4th stage of the Sun Life Great Race, and it's just
Kosgei looks like he's even putting more pressure on at the moment. He's way.
But it's interesting there, he's complaining, but in fact he's nowhere near him. Nowhere near. Oh, nowhere near. He may have touched him there by chance, but when he looked back, Kosgei, just near him. Now that's about the worst thing I've seen in all my years in athletics. That's an absolute disgrace, and the young lad is obviously very...
Can't believe that's happened. I've never ever seen that happen in any athletics event at any level, quite honestly, Tom. Kosgei he's complained to the people running behind him. He's been waving his arms about, but that is absolutely disgraceful behaviour.
And he's certainly broken young Dos Santos, and that's completely understandable. The lad's about 150. Field athletics, and as I said, it's the worst thing I've ever seen in all my... It will have to be severely punished. This is not sportsmanlike conduct. No reason at all for it. In fact, Katabi yesterday was far closer for most of the run, and this young lad he's been well clear of him for the most of the time, and has made an attempt to get away from him at times.
Well, not only that, Tom, he's a part of the way, which is which is a lot more than young Katabi did yesterday. But it looks like he's getting away now, and there's only going to be one winner here.
He's now closing in on finish in English Street in the middle of Carlisle, and the waiting officials and spectators, but I have in my mouth as I watch young Dos Santos, clearly badly shocked. No runner ever expects anything like that.
Must have caught him with quite a blow, really. He's obviously not happy. He must be terribly upset about the situation. Doesn't even look like the same runner now. His knees have dropped. He's nowhere near as fluent as he was, and it seems to have completely destroyed.
But Kosgei's rhythm, that's remorseless, with just about half a mile to go. That's about 2 minutes 25. Leaves a bitter taste in my mouth to see this fella winning after that disgraceful incident on the bridge there.
Caliber and this sort of class, quite frankly, with his sort of experience, would commit an act like that. Obviously doesn't need to. He's a world-class athlete in his own right. I mean, he's winning stages, you know, with his own ability, and he certainly doesn't have to resort.
And Dos Santos is clearly still troubled, and he's going to have difficulty maybe even in holding off the pack. He's sobbing, and it's been a major shock. I mean, you've been running for 16 miles and then you get clattered like that. It's hard to act of that nature, and but he's still plugging on. He's a game lad. He's still plugging on.
Yes, it certainly doesn't seem to have affected this guy on the front, though. He's away. It certainly hasn't affected him. His eyes are certainly intent on a win. But as we look at young Dos Santos here, his whole morale has sort of hit. If the pack's closing in on him now.
Yeah, the pack's sucking him in. You can see his leg speed's dropped, his speed has dropped, and as Kosgei come closing pack. The big question is, of course, what are the judges going to say about this? Because certainly they can't ignore it's an appalling act, and one that has to be severely punished, in my view.
Well, I'm sure that will have to go to a jury of appeal, and it's obvious to myself must be done about that. Right now, here we see Dos Santos. He's trying to keep the pack off his back. He's sort of gathered himself together now, and he's come. Have his hands full with that chasing group.
Yes, but it's Kosgei finishing first. He's really gutting himself just to keep the closing pack who are sucking him in. He was 14 seconds behind the leader. Third, we had Rios of the Sporting Club Portugal fourth. And there's the Russian. Dos Santos is really broken by this, absolutely broken, as the other runners. And he's trying to explain it to Kosgei and saying what happened there. And look, another clout. That is really appalling.
The lad is totally upset. He's tried to apologise, but it looked when Kosgei came in that he actually waited for him on. He obviously isn't happy with that situation.
Yes, that's one of our race marshals there, Sylvia, just pour some oil over the troubled waters, but that was really an appalling incident.
I don't think she's really knows what she's walked into.
Of the race, the incident between Kip Kosgei and Delmir Dos Santos of Brazil. Both parties thought they were in the right. Very upset. What happened?
my feet just, I don't know exactly English because I speak Portuguese and Spanish, but my feet just make this and his heel. He watching back. Pardon me, I say, okay, sorry, I stayed this way, say pass, and say, no, sorry, and I don't know, he gave me a big sock in my floor.
So I told him, go by me, okay? Go by me, this side to this side. He doesn't want to follow. I was almost falling down somewhere. So I told him, okay, we have enough space on the road. We only two. And I told him,
today I was run very easy. I think I go to win this stage, but this is happening. This is so bad. I'm so sorry about it.
He refused. He was following me all the time and kicking my legs. When I lifted my leg, he kicks. You see? Kicks. And I was almost falling down somewhere. Give him one slap. And then he decided to go well.
Did he drop back from you then?
Yes. Well, it took me about 6 miles coming with him.
Referee David Walsh and race director Alan Rushton immediately watched the recording of the incident, the decision, and came down in favour of Dos Santos.
We have decided, and Kip has been told, that we shall demote him to second place on the day. 1 second slower than the now winner of the stage. He'll take a 2-minute penalty on his general classification. That this sort of action is not allowed.
So the decision of the referee, Kip Kosgei, relegated to second place and docked 2 minutes' time in the Sun Life Great Race. But despite that, he still holds a yellow vest. And afterwards, he accepted the decision of the referee.
At all, I've already accepted what I've done, and they can take off my 2 minutes, and I've already apologized to the official, to my friend, and no problem now.
You regret the incident?
Yes, I regret it, because actually him actually was hitting me behind all the time, and I warned him twice, and that was the third time.
But you accept that you were in the wrong by hitting him?
Yes.
Does this make you more determined now to race on and get your lead back? Even a clearer lead that you've now lost. You've lost 2 minutes.
I'll try to recover my 2 minutes sometimes, but not actually tomorrow or the day after, maybe 15 days when I'll return my 2 minutes back.
But you've certainly posted a warning to anybody for running behind you.
Well, it's better to not to hit me intentionally.
Well, they started this race in Gretna Green, but despite the handshake, I suspect that tonight, Kip and Delmere Boy won't. First place. He's done well because he's nursing an Achilles tendon injury. Mick McLeod well back, but fighting to keep in touch. Mick wants to be there when they get to Westminster. And there's Dave Moorcroft. 91st place, 14.23 off the leaders today. Hard work for Dave, but he still manages a smile. Have to try and get going for tomorrow. So let's take a... Santos now in first place, Kosgei relegated to second. Let's look down the list. The Soviets are there again. Top 10, 21 seconds between first and 10th on today's stage 4. Let's have a look overall. Kosgei still out in front by 17 seconds from the Soviet runner Sokov. Kotov, another Soviet Union runner there again as well. No British runners in the top 10. Chalago from Kenya down there, back off his teammate Kip Kosgei. Steve Brace news now. He's back in the field. Steve Brace back in the race, sick, blisters, but back in it today, plus 5 minutes. So Steve Brace of Wales gets another chance to run again. Jerry Kiernan up there in 12th place, looking in 18th. Dave Moorcroft in 60th place overall, 22.35 down. So stage 4 completed at the Sun. Tomorrow we move into the Lake District, 13.4 miles from Keswick to Grasmere. Seconds out, stage 5 at the Sun Life Great Race. See you tomorrow. Stage 4 of the Sun Life Great Race started with phone calls home and a quick look at the TV, all very light-hearted. But it ended on a sour note, with race leader Kip Kosgei hitting Delmir dos Santos as the stage hotted up less than a mile from home. Hello again, the Sun Life Great Race has reached the Lake District. We're in Keswick and the field today goes to Grasmere. But all the talk is still about yesterday's incident with Kip Kosgei striking out at Dos Santos of Brazil. Kosgei maintains the Brazilian was running so close to him he was clipping his heels, and despite 2 warnings continued to make contact. Kosgei won the stage, but the judges reversed the positions and docked the Kenyan 2 minutes. The American team that Dos Santos runs for lodged a protest at the leniency of the decision. There was a petition too from some of the athletes in support of the protest, because what the judges hadn't seen was that the row ran on after the stage had finished, and Kosgei again made contact with Dos Santos. Well, the judges met again last night, and this time the decision was that Kosgei should be relegated to the back of the stage. That really changes things round. Kosgei, winner of stages 1, 2, 3, is now down to 49th place and has 18 minutes and a second to make up. The judges have warned him too that any more unsporting behaviour and he's out. Sergei Sokov of the Soviet Union now gets the yellow vest, and there's a Soviet athlete in 2nd place too. Sokov's lead 25 seconds. Kipkoech of Kenya is down there in 6th. Top British runner Jerry Helm, 5:01 down in 13th place. Well, sitting with the judges to decide what should happen about the incident is one of our commentators, Ian Stewart. Ian, course director, what was said in the meeting?
Feelings were running pretty high in the meeting. The reaction of the athletes in the race was pretty dramatic in actual fact. That influenced a lot of people in there. Certain people wanted Kosgei removed from the race, but you have to see it as a totally different situation. You have to see it as a stage race, not a one-day event.
You've been in there in the thick of it. Surely this sort of thing happens sometimes. People clip each other's legs.
Oh, I mean, that happens all the time. People are running directly behind you. You're getting your legs clipped, your ankles clipped all the time. It's just a sort of a suck-it-and-see situation. Happens in middle distance running every day. Kosgei obviously doesn't like people running behind him. Totally lost his head. His actions were totally inexcusable. You can't just go around socking people in the face. And then you had the further incident at the finish, where he again made contact with Dos Santos, which was absolutely appalling, and he's been severely reprimanded because of it.
Thanks, Ian. Well, there's a lot for the runners to do today, but when the athletes here at the start, they're still talking about Kip Kosgei and Delmir dos Santos.
Yeah, I think it was the worst incident I've ever seen in athletics, and I think the penalty needed to be severe, and it appears to be severe enough.
Personally, and I think a lot of fellow athletes would go the same way, he should have been taken straight out of the race. There's no way you strike a fellow competitor regardless of what he does in a competition. The thing is, young children at home are watching this, and it's a bit unfair. This is a new event, but the thing is, overall, it is athletics. It doesn't matter what sport you are, except boxing. We haven't got the Queensberry rules in this, and it's unfair for somebody to strike someone and to still compete. It's very unfair.
In relation to the Kip Kosgei incident, are you happy now that justice has been done?
Yes, I think so. I mean, it would be a shame in a sense having him kicked out, although that was the gut feeling initially. And we did make a sort of statement amongst the UK elite athletes that we didn't think it had been dealt with strongly enough. We are satisfied now that that the thing has been redressed, and at least he's had a proper penalty, and justice has seemed to be done, and it sort of proves to people that you can't get away with doing anything in a race.
Many people thought Kip shouldn't be allowed in the race now, should be thrown out. Do you agree with that?
Personally, no, I don't. I think it would be slightly unfair. That would be too extreme, and it would also punish his colleagues. I think the justice has probably been done within what can be done, of course.
Faced with the same situation, if you're in Dos Santos' shoes, what would have happened there?
First of all, I don't care who you are, how hard you are, you would have been in shock for a few seconds, and there would have been something going on after the finishing line. You know, you just can't stand for that kind of thing. But initially, you're in shock because you don't expect to get hit, obviously, during a race. But afterwards, there would have been some fun and games, I think.
Well, if I'd been involved in that situation, I'd have turned around to Mr. Koska and say, firstly, go home and go and learn your bloody manners. Secondly, I'm a farmer, as you probably well know by now, and there's a certain instrument called the Dinkum roller docker that I patent and market in the UK, and it's a thing for castrating lambs. Well, I'd have been very pleased to show the people in the Great Race how it works by putting Mr. Koska inside it and show how castration is carried out in the Dinkum roller docker.
And maybe once they get running, the dust will start to settle, but I'm not sure how it will because it's very windy today, difficult conditions for the athletes. Let's take a look at stage 5 of the Sun Life Great Race. We're going from Keswick to Grasmere. And what a start, straight up this hill, Chestnut Hill, the second climb in the King of the Hills section of the event. 1¼ mile to the top, they'll be climbing 600 feet. The runners go straight alongside Thirlmere today, one of the most beautiful lakes of Cumbria. They'll see Helvellyn, the second highest mountain in England, but they don't have to climb it. Taking a look at the profile of today's course, the big climb at the start, undulating for a while, then a long flattish stretch, and once again they climb and then down into Grasmere. 13.4 miles, it's stage 5 of the Sun Life Great Race.
3 seconds.
Great turnout in Keswick, not a good day for the locals, and away they go. A fair field and no favour, the best man to win. That was what Sir Montague Sherman said, one of the major leaders of athletics in the 19th century. And here are two more leaders in athletics, our commentary team, Ian Stewart and Tom McNabb.
And leading out of Keswick, Ali Itunze of Algeria, running through the narrow streets of Keswick towards Grasmere, the home of English athletics, home of the Grasmere Games, one of the last great English rural sports meetings, held every year in August. But there's Itunze leading through the narrow streets, tracked by the King of the Hills of the Sun Life Great Race, Nigel Gates, from way down in Brighton and Hove Athletic Club. He'll be really going, Ian, for this first big hill.
Yes, this hill here that they're on actually is the first round today of the King of the Hills competition. Hence Nigel Gates there. He obviously fancies his chances of taking yet another stage in that competition. I noticed there Alabi Katabi there is he's got up a very early stage of this race, and quite unusual for him. And I think that alongside him is Derek Froud. He runs for the Boulder Club. He's number 94, New Zealander by birth, I think.
But this first hill is a real beast. It's tough enough to get up with the car, and Nigel Gates is going for it.
Well, Nigel Gates, King of the Hills, and he said today, would he attack this section of the race?
Oh yeah, I mean, I won the first one, and I've got a lot of mileage out of being there from that stage. I can't make any secret of the fact that's what I'm aiming for. So today's an important stage for me. I want to confirm my position.
Have you looked at this particular hill?
I have, yes. It's very steep. It could be a shock to these road runners. They were complaining about the hills on the first stage. This one's going to be quite a shock to people, I think.
What is the specific skill of being able to go up these inclines?
Well, first of all, you have to be fairly cautious because you can't just sprint straight into it. But other than that, it's natural aptitude. Some people run up hills better than others, and I do find it easier running up hills than on the flat, to be honest.
Now, on this one in particular, it seems you go up and then down a little bit, and then there's a big climb. Some people are saying going downhill is more painful than going uphill.
Oh, it is, most definitely. It wrecks your legs. I mean, that's why everybody's stiff. Some of the very fast downhill descents we've done have really wrecked everybody's thighs. It's much more controlled going up a hill, even if you're breathing a lot harder. but actually the stress on the muscular system is much harder going downhill.
Do you think there'll be anyone attacking you today to go for this particular hill?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, why not? It's not very far up the mountain. I'm sure there'll be someone giving me a go. As long as I get some points, I'm happy.
You're going to push for it?
I'm going for it.
But so is Derek Froud. Derek Froud from the Boulder Running Club. He's going for it too. 31 years of age. Derek's a 2 hours, 11 minutes, 25-second marathon man. And it's interesting to see him here going for the hill. He didn't really go for it on the last occasion, did he?
No, he didn't. He's a very useful runner, though, with 2 hours 11. I say it's very interesting to see Katabi in there. When they actually finish this climb, I should be fascinated to see if Froud actually moved over and lets Katabi get on with it, or he actually chases him or tries to continue up the road.
So they're now in the last little downhill stretch before they strike for the top of the hill. And you can see, you'll see when they're running, how they have to use the arms very vigorously uphill. As Nigel Gates said, there is a technique for running. He tends to be a natural uphill runner. And these runners have to have particular strength in the front of the legs, don't they, Ian?
Yes, they do. Gates is a natural climber anyway. I mean, you can see that by the way he sort of leans forward into the hill. I see now they've been joined by number 78, Avelino Frias of Portugal, and if I remember correctly, he was another climber on the last big climb they took.
And back about 300 meters behind the leader, there's the figure of the holder of the new holder of the yellow vest, Sokov of Russia, running alongside Kozgai, who of course has held the yellow vest during these first 4 days of the Sun Life Great Race. But back into the lead, Derek Froud of Boulder Running Club, and tracking him, number 78 in red, Avelino Frias of Portugal. Behind him, number 70, Alabi Katabi, and just slightly in front of him, Nigel Gates. So Nigel's getting a bit of competition in this time, not getting his own way.
Yes, it certainly looks like Derek Froud's just pouring on the pace here, and he's definitely going to go for this climb. He seems very, very determined to drop everybody else. I think Nigel Gates down there, he looks like he's suffering a little bit. That sort of yard gap that's appearing between Frias and Froud just shows how hard Froud is pushing along.
They're very close to the first mile marker. Nigel Gates is starting to struggle slightly in third place. They go through the first mile marker now. 5:44 the time. That must be tough going up that hill, Tom.
It is indeed. 5:44. For many joggers, running 5:44 would be a personal best on the flat. And this is a really steep climb. You can see it there. Here's the chasing group. It's a real grind as they hit the mile mark. About 12 seconds behind. That's about 50, 60 meters at this speed. And you can see even Sokov is really struggling. But there, Froud isn't struggling. He's pushing it. With a quarter of a mile to go, he's got about a 10 to 15 meter lead.
It looks like he's pouring on the pace here. He's dropped Frias and Nigel Gates, but he certainly seems like he's another climber in this competition. Obviously, he's got his eyes set on Gates' red jersey.
Yes, and not the normal build for a climber, Ian, is he? He's very, very lean, long, very, very tall for a climber, usually a little bit more compact.
Yes, he looks more like a track runner, sort of 10,000 meter type. He doesn't look like the short, stocky sort of guy you'd usually expect to be a good climber. But he looks like he's won this no problems at all. Nobody's going to fetch him out from that position.
No, he's put up about 150 meter lead now, and all he has to do is keep cruising on, and he's got it. He's cracked it. It's now flattening out as they come to the summit, but Derek Froud of Boulder Running Club in Colorado, he seems to be the king of the hills for the day at least.
It'll be interesting here to see if Nigel Gates actually picks a second place up behind Froud when they go over this climb, which would possibly retain his jersey overall. He seems to be, he's got on the back of Frias again there. And Froud looks over his shoulder, but he hasn't got any problems. He's probably got about 80 metres at the moment between himself and the chasing pair.
A lovely view of the lake right down into Windermere. Not the best day to see it, unfortunately, but there Derek Froud isn't caring. He clatters on past to win the second King of the Hills section and £100.
Yes, looking there, it looked like Nigel Gates did get second place over that climb, so it would probably give him the overall jersey. He would retain that overnight, I should imagine, on a points system, so no doubt he'll be quite pleased with that.
And there's number 98. There's another Boulder boy. And behind them, number 64, Koskai, and number 74, which is Sebtoy, Hassan Sebtoy of Morocco.
Magnificent countryside in the Lake District. Who's going to win this next stage? They sorted out the King of the Hills on this occasion, but who's going to win the stage overall? Join us in a few moments. That made a break just after the 2 mile mark. That made a break just after the 2 mile mark, and he's heading towards the 7 mile mark now. And I must ask Ian Stewart something. Ian, in this situation, running on your own surely must be a real grueler.
Oh, this is extremely difficult running. He's put himself way out in front of the chasing bunch, and he's got to endure any headwinds, the slight bits of rain that keep coming down. You know, he's going to get cold running into the wind every time he turns a bend into the wind. He's really put himself on the line here.
And there we see the split between the leader and the next group coming through, headed by Dos Santos, who finished second yesterday in our fourth stage yesterday. And he's been tracked by another Boulder boy, Alfredo Vigueras of Mexico. Now, we haven't seen much of him so far, but up in the lead, Elabe Katabi. Now, it's interesting, he finished second on stages 2 and 3, had a wee rest on stage 4, and he seems to be picking it up again here on stage 5. Do you think that's a tactic, Ian?
Yes, I think that's definitely one of his plans. He's had a crack at winning a couple of stages, and he's got out-kicked on both of those occasions. So he's obviously decided he's going to have a go at running from the front. And here we see Kip Koskai. He's running in 4th place at the moment. He's chasing down that chasing bunch, the two guys in front of him, one of which is the lad Dos Santos that he had an incident with on the road yesterday.
Yes, he must feel a bit disheartened now, although I think I agree with some of the other runners. It was very fortunate indeed still to be in the race. It's very difficult to judge because we tend to think of this as a different kind of race. There are some people who would say that no, it is a total race and he should have been out completely. But out at the front, Katabi. He's 2 minutes 16 behind the leaders on aggregate time. He's lying in 21st position, and he could easily take the yellow jersey today.
Confirmation after 2 hills in the King of the Hills competition. Nigel Gates with 27 points, still keeps the red vest. Katabi going there in 2nd place.
And Katabi, well, lying 2nd in King of the Hills, but that won't trouble him. I think he's going for a much bigger fish altogether. And there behind them, Dos Santos, and this new lad, we haven't seen much of him, as I said before, young Alfredo Vigueras of Mexico.
They look as if they're running extremely well here to me, Tom. They seem as if they're closing on Katabi and pulling away from Koskai, which I'm sure will delight Dos Santos. The guy that's running with him, Vigueras, he hasn't made much impression on the race at all so far, but they are really clipping along at the moment.
Let's have a look at the situation in the overall race at the moment after stage 4. 2 Soviet athletes there. There's Kip Koech down in 6th place. I wonder if he'll take up the mantle now that Koskai has gone down. No British runner in the top 10.
But looking at Katabi again, he's lying in 5th spot there, but only 2 minutes 16 behind the leader. And he, as I said before, could take the yellow jersey. That's what I think he's going for, Ian. Oh, if he takes time out of Sokov, never mind the two guys that are chasing him at the moment, he's got to just take just over a minute out of Sergei Sokov, and he takes the yellow jersey. There's no two ways about that. Yes, because Dos Santos is in fact 6 minutes 59 outside on aggregate time. He's lying back in 16, so he's got to take the time, as you say, Ian, out of Sokov, and he could easily do it. Oh, quite easily. The problem Dos Santos has is that he's going to have to run a few more stages of this sort of quality to get on terms with Katabi overall. Of course, this is Katabi's 3rd attempt at winning a stage. And, I mean, you say he's had 2 abortive ones so far. He's just missed out in finishing 2nd. But he seems to have had a complete change of heart today, and he's having a crack off the front. Just coming up now to the 8-mile mark. Ilabi Katabi leading and running very comfortably indeed. And just, you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, Thurlmere. Yeah, this is a good move of Katabi's in actual fact. He's gone out there on his own, and as he approaches the 8-mile stage, you see him just go through 8 miles. But he's out there on his own at the moment, and he's just saying, okay, everybody's going to have to catch me. But behind him, Dos Santos, and we can see at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, they are now the tracking pack 10 seconds behind. That's about 60 meters, 50, 60 meters, not far. And Koskai, 26 seconds back. That's about maybe 130, 140 meters. Yes, that means Dos Santos has taken a fair bit of time out of Koskai in about the last mile. Him and Vigueiros there have certainly closed down on Katabi, but it looks like Koskai is making no impression on either parties at the moment. But I said before that Katabi's made a good move here. Even if he's caught, the overall lead could still be his. He could possibly just run in easy, even when he is caught, and save himself for another day. Yes, because our information is that Sokov was well back, probably about a couple of minutes back, and he has at present 2 minutes 16 behind the lead. And there's Derek Froud, today's king of the hills, just going through the 8-mile mark. 5.4 miles to go into Grasmere. At the front, it looks to me as if Katabi's being pulled in. Yes, they're definitely closing on him, but one of the interesting things about this race today is, has he got his eye on winning the stage, or has he got his eye on taking the yellow jersey? Well, there is the yellow jersey of Sokov as they go through 8 miles, and they are 1 minute 45 seconds behind the leaders. Now all that Katabi has to pick up is 2:16, and he's got quite a bit to go yet.
Well, new yellow vest leader there of Sokov, but his teammate Vladimir Kotov, who is in the Soviet army, well, he's been running very well. Trying to get to talk to him is rather difficult, though. You need an army of interpreters to actually get to speak to him. But when I spoke to him this morning, I tried to find out, going via German and Russian and into English, whether he found it difficult to keep the pace going.
sagt, ja, das ist schwer.
Yes,
it's difficult.
It's very difficult for him.
Aber hat gelesen, sagte, dass man 2 Tage immer schnell rennen sollte und 2 Tage nicht.
He read in a book, or I don't know where, he will run 2 days fast, and then he will run 2 days a little bit slowly, and so it will be good, he thinks.
Many of the British athletes are saying that a lot of the foreign athletes have gone off far too quickly and they won't be able to last the course because there's such a long way. His reaction to that?
Yes, he thinks it was good for they to run so fast, but he don't know how they get to London, and it's very difficult to run every day fast, and we will see.
Would you please thank Vladimir very much and wish him all the best in today's stage? We enjoy watching him run.
Спасибо. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm not sure who had the most difficulty there, them understanding my Liverpool accent or me understanding their Russian accent. Or Tom's Scottish accent, for example.
Well, I freely admit that English is a second language for me, Ray, which you don't. But looking at Sokov there, he is not maybe as happy as we've seen him in the last 2 or 3 days.
No, he seems to be, I think this seems to be a bit of a team effort today. They're trying to just get through today's stage as best they can. They had a very long stage yesterday. But I think the problem he has is the cut-off. He's a bit of an iron man. And whenever he gets to get on the front, he certainly has a real crack at it. Yeah, here we are at the front here with Katabi. And Dos Santos, he's really closing. It looks as if he's really put his head down because he's dropped Vigueras, his team partner. And he's really closing up extremely quickly here.
Yes, the 24-year-old Delmir Dos Santos. He's run 28.49 for 10 kilometers, which is fast running. He's obviously quite a classy runner over that distance. But he's got no real international record, has he, Ian?
No, he hasn't got any international record. I mean, that time's quite good by club standards, but certainly not internationally.
Going through to 9 miles and Katabi out in front, but Dos Santos really closing him down, reeling him in. 4:56 the last mile. Through now.
Yes, and Katabi been pulled in on a long rope here. And Dos Santos looking very, very comfortable indeed. And he goes ahead immediately. Looking good.
Yes, it looks like Vigueras there, just in the background. He's working extremely hard to get back on.
And Kosgei is passing the mile mark at 28 seconds behind. And certainly it doesn't look the easy, fluid, silky runner of the last 4 days, does he, Ian?
No, he seems as if he certainly seems to have stiffened up there, and he looks like he's having a lot of problems. But Vigueras here, I mean, this guy is really trying hard. His style is a little bit all over the place, but he's got to have 100% for effort to try and get on the back of these pair.
Yes, he's rolling around like a drunken sailor there, really. Not a great model of technique. And one of the problems here, Ian, is if you have to work as hard as that, you can be absolutely shattered for the next day, because he's clearly really having to gut himself to stay up there.
Yes, I would be very surprised if we see much of Mr. Vigueras up there tomorrow. But here on the front, Santos here is he's running very easily. But it makes one wonder if he's just been sent up as a minder for Dos Santos after yesterday's problems.
Well, if he's a minder, he's struggling just to stay up himself at this moment. Very good for Boulder, of course, because they've got 2 guys up here in the first 3, and that means they're pulling in the Russians in the team event. And here are the Russians. We've got Kotov in front, and Sokov just behind him in the yellow vest, and they are 1 minute 50 seconds behind the leaders. So in fact the Boulder boys are picking up some time here.
Well, they really are, but one of the most interesting factors of this race is it's the first time that I've ever seen runners actually running as a team. You have 2 of the Boulder guys here, and they seem to be sort of running, taking turns on the front and following each other through, chased by 2 Russians who are also running as a team. And I mean, in middle distance running, you don't get that. You just sort of, you run as an individual usually, and then the team sort of counts it up after it. But here we seem to have a definite sort of team partnership. These guys are almost like a cycle race, you know, they're sort of taking bit and bit on the front just to keep the pace high.
Well, just thinking about that team concept, I wonder what Kosgei's demotion will do to the Kenyan side. The Kenyans have only got 4 runners with them for this Sun Life Great Race. And now with Kosgei's demotion, they're down to 5th. And if Kosgei would have been out of the race, well, they'd be in trouble, because you had to have 4 runners finishing the course and making a time, so you'd be considered to qualify for the team award. Looking further down, to find a British side, Red Counters Athletic Club, new team from Merseyside, they're in 8th, led by Jerry Helm. Telford Athletic Club in there at 10th place too. Bill Bedell leading their charge forward.
Yes, it's going to be very interesting to see how much Boulder can pick up today on the Russians. But there, lying in 4th place, Kip Kosgei, as I said, looking rather choppy today, not got the relaxation, the fluency we've seen in the last four legs of the run. But back with the leaders. Figueres on the right-hand side of the screen. His Boulder Road Running Club, Delmiro dos Santos, there just having a quick wipe across his face and clearing his nose. And as runners seem to do in all the time in this race. And just behind them, Elabi Katabi.
This guy Figueres here, he seems to, he's working overtime almost just to stay there. I say this team aspect of this race is quite fascinating. I've never seen runners sort of work together like this before. And I suspect the further we go into the race, the more this is going to happen, whereby there are certain people in the team who are going to have to pull the big stars, the big names, up to the front. I mean, as I say that, look, Dos Santos is off again. He's trying to crack Katabi and perhaps get away. But Figueres is there. He's sort of going along with him, and it must be really killing him.
Well, Figueres looks to be like a sort of frightened child, actually. You know, he's looking to the side, and every time Dos Santos makes a run, he tries to stay with him. Look at him. He's like a little boy. And we're just coming up now to the 10-mile marker. We'll see that in a moment.
Tom, looking at the clock, they're going to cross that 10-mile mark any second. They're averaging at 5 minutes a mile now after starting off on that hill going right up there. How they can average that pace is unbelievable. And I must say, the last runner I've ever heard of with the name Alfred Alfredo was Alf Tupper. Remember him?
Alf Tupper of Rover fame, yes. The tough of the track. And this guy's a bit of a tough here today, there's no question of that. And Kosgei lying in 4th too. He's not proving to be quite as tough today, but the terrain is tough, there's no question of that. And he's steadily dropping back off the lead. And he'll soon be approaching the 10-mile marker himself. He's around about half a minute behind. But at the lead, Delmiro dos Santos now stretching away from his colleague, young Figueres. And behind him, Elabi Katabi. So the gap is opening, although Figueres is trying to close it.
I noticed earlier on that Figueres has got a 13:29 5,000 metre time, which is an extremely respectable time in actual fact. On paper, he's a better track runner than Dos Santos here. You wouldn't think that to see it. Obviously, the way Figueres is having to work to get back to him. But he seems to have been just put in there to support him today, to almost sort of push him up the road and act as a domestique for him. Katabi here, I'm not quite sure what he's up to. Whether I say he's got his eye on the yellow jersey or on he's obviously given up on a stage win, because he seems to be dropped off the pace.
And the yellow vest of Sokov just about to cross the 10-mile marker. And as they close in on 10 miles, they're over 2 minutes behind the leaders, and that means that certainly Katabi, who's 3rd, certainly looks like pushing for the yellow vest.
Here we have the leading break again, and Figueres, he's back on the front, pulling Dos Santos along the road here. He's shielding him a little bit from the wind. I mean, they're running as a pair. Absolutely remarkable, really. It's quite fantastic.
Well, here's the Boulder boys heading towards the finish. Who'll get to the tape first, Dos Santos or Figueres? Join us in a moment. Ten and a half miles into this stage today. 13.4 they have to make, and there's the leading group. Delmiro dos Santos and Alfredo Vigaras. Let's get back to our commentary team, Tom McNabb and Ian Stewart.
And still cracking along at 5-minute mile pace, moving downhill here with a 50 to 60 metre lead over Elabi Katabi. So it looks as if they're going to be leading the drive into Grasmere. Grasmere, as I said before, the home of English athletics. The very first Grasmere Games in around about the 1830 period. And every year they hold these marvellous games and this wonderful fell race in August in Grasmere. So they're driving along into Grasmere, surging into the town on a typical Lake District day. Many a time I've been at the Grasmere Games, and it's always a day like this, no matter how sunny it's been before. But the sun does come out for these two lads, and they're still cracking along at a fair pace. I would say they're inside 5 minutes over the last 3 miles, Ian.
Yes, they really are moving at the moment. I noticed that Figueres was dropping his arms a little bit as he came up the top of that slight rise they've just come up. And he's just running an ordinary singlet, so he must be quite cold. The rains hit him early on and the cold winds got to him. He must be sort of cramping up a little bit in his arms. Whereas De Santos there, he's obviously heavily wrapped. He's got his tights and quite a thick sweat on under that shirt, so he obviously must be feeling quite warm, really. He must be a lot better off.
Right at the 11-mile mark now. They're pushing on at a furious pace. I just wonder whether they're running as a team or whether they'll be going for it when they get towards the tape. We'll give you a time on the mile. They go through it. 4:56 the time, so they're really pushing it on again.
And it's 14 minutes 59 seconds for the last 3 miles, so they are pushing it on. And I don't think you'll see them run as a team when they crack into Grasmere, Ray. I think they'll go for it as every runner has gone for it in every one of these 4 stages so far. But have a look at Katabi, they're just behind. I think he's cut it down to about 30 metres, so he's pulling him in again.
Well, here he is in 4th place at the moment, 64 on his shirt. A lot of people haven't forgiven him for what happened yesterday. I saw his reaction this morning. Did he feel the penalty was excessive or too harsh?
Yes, too harsh, because I apologize, but they have taken too far. So when somebody apologizes, they shouldn't have taken too far like that. Well, I accept it anyway.
Are you surprised that some of the athletes are so upset about it?
I don't know, because I don't know the way they feel, but I don't think I'm happy too, because when somebody is kicking me behind, I don't think I'll be very happy too.
But a lot of the British athletes say you have broken a code of athletics in hitting a fellow competitor.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But maybe I don't know the rules myself.
But it is the code, the ethics of athletics they say you have broken.
Well, I accept it, because they know more than me. I don't know myself. I know nothing.
How do you feel about today's stage now? Do you feel mentally well enough to run?
Yeah, well enough to run. With everybody. I think everybody's capable of running too.
And of course, now, can you get the 18 minutes back and regain your lead?
I don't know. It depends. So, maybe.
And Elabi Katabi has caught up. He's pulled them in again. And it's all 3 pushing on into Grasmere. De Santos having a quick look across and saying, how has he got up there again? In the middle, his colleague Figueres. And in the far right there, Elabi Katabi, who has featured so strongly in the last 3 legs of this race. He's looking good.
I would think the way Katabi has closed that gap down at the moment, Tom, he could possibly be the leader on the road. Overall, that is, at the overall classification. I'm not quite sure what the break is now over Sokov, but he's got to be approaching that 2:16 deficit.
Well, the 2:06, Ian, is of course over the leader of the race, but it's certain that he's got at least 2 minutes, I think, at this point over Sokov.
It looks like Figueres here has been pushed onto the front, and he's making quite a tremendous effort. I mean, they're going downhill at the moment, of which a lot of the athletes have complained that their legs are feeling shot after these downhill sections. It certainly doesn't seem to be bothering Figueres or Katabi. Dos Santos is just sitting back there and letting his teammate make the pace, and perhaps looking for a sprint finish.
Yes, Dos Santos has shown that he's got a bit of dig at the end. He hasn't been able to deal with Kosgei, because Kosgei is really a powerful sprinter. In the final couple of 100 meters, he's shown that. But he may be able to deal with these two. Certainly, I think he can deal with Figueres, who's looking fairly weak, looking quite happy just to hang in there.
Getting very close. Here they come to the 12-mile marker, pushing on again, heading down towards Grasmere. The three of them going through the 12-mile marker at just about the same time, and the time will be 4:38. And now the race is on. Final mile and a final mile .4 to see who takes this latest stage of the Sun Life Great Race.
Yes, 4:38. That's fairly long downhill stretch. That's why it's so fast. But it really is a cracking pace. There's no question of that. And they're really bombing into Grasmere strongly. Katabi just a little bit adrift now, Ian. Just a little bit adrift.
Yes, these guys from Boulder have certainly sort of cracked along with this. Figueres has been sent in there, obviously, to keep the pace as high as they possibly can, so nobody can possibly get on the end of it. And it looks like Katabi's gone again. He's out of the picture by the look of it. Dos Santos here, he sort of looks quite easy, but it almost looks like Figueres. He's just running flat out all the time.
Yes, it doesn't look as if he's going to have the strength for a big dig at the end, whereas Dos Santos looks very compact indeed, very crisp, very neat. And there's Kosgei coming up to the 12-mile marker, and he's won about 1 minute 10 seconds, something like that, behind the leaders.
He doesn't look anywhere near as good as Dos Santos is. He's sort of been he's been caught here by Derek Froud, the other Boulder runner.
And in fact, it's 1 minute 26 behind the leaders. Kosgei's behind the leaders. So that's a fair way back. But Derek Froud there's running very well. He's lying 8 minutes 48 behind in aggregate time. But he's 20th, and that's a dangerous position to be in a race of this distance, Ian.
Well, it's a very dangerous position, especially with the amount of stages to go. But the remarkable thing here is that we've got three Boulder guys, and they're in the first 5 of the race. It looks like Katabi now is about 50 metres down and struggling. And as I say there, Derek Froud, he's catching Kosgei, and it looks like he's just going to go straight past him. It's the first time I've seen Kosgei running this badly in the race. He really is struggling. Froud hasn't looked at him at all. He's just gone straight past, and he's cracking on with it.
And there's, at 12 miles, the yellow vest passing Sokov, just passing the 12-mile mark. But well ahead of them, I would say well over 2 minutes ahead now, are the leaders, Dos Santos on the left, and on the right, Figueres. But in terms of the yellow vest, I would say Katabi is now the overall leader in terms of the Sun Life Great Race, even though we're looking at the first and second in this stage between Keswick and Grasmere.
This man Figueres is quite incredible, because it almost looks like he's flat out all of the time. He's rolling all over the place, but he's keeping the pace so high there. And here we have Derek Froud. He's after the winning the King of the Mountains. He's actually stayed well in the race, and he's trying to obviously chase down on Katabi. He's in 4th place now, which gives Boulder 3 runners in 4, which is quite an incredible achievement in this stage.
But the big question really is how much time they can get on the Russians. They've really got to be pulling in, a substantial amount of time, not just places, but lots of time. It'll be interesting to see how much time they've gained at the end of the stage from Keswick to Grasmere.
Well, the big thing they're going to have to do is they're going to have to run like this for the next 2 or 3 days if they intend to drag their team up amongst the leaders. And the way Vigueras looks there to me, I can't see him performing like this again tomorrow somehow. I hope we're pleasantly surprised.
But let's look at those arms working. There's Dos Santos really starting to use his arms, just like a sprinter, starting to dig in. And they're going for the finish now.
And here they are, the 13-mile mark, and now the sprint's on. Only yards to go. Who's going to get there?
Well, it's quite... This little guy, Vigueras, is still plugging along. He looks like death, but he keeps coming. They're moving uphill, but there goes Dos Santos. There goes the arm dig, the dig back of the arms that really drives the legs, those tires legs on. And he's going for it. He's really digging in for it. He's hitting hard, and I don't think there's anything Vigueras can do about it. The leg speed looks terrific. He really is digging in here, and there's nothing Vigueras can do about it. And in comes young Dos Santos to win his second stage in the Sun Life Great Race. Out goes the right hand. Quite a different day from yesterday. Happy day indeed for the young boy from Boulder, Colorado.
He greets his teammate there, Vigueras, who I must say he's run extremely well. But here comes Katabi, and what we really need to see is the difference between Katabi's finishing time and Sokov's. And he's 18 seconds down on the leading pair, and what he really needs to be doing now is waiting for 1 minute and 17 seconds to see if Sokov comes in behind him. And assuming that he gets that time, he'll be in the yellow jersey this evening.
But here comes Derek Froud. He must be very happy with that. Picked up 100 pounds in the King of the Hill. And that's rather surprising that he managed to make that big hit in the King of the Hill instead of the legs left to get on to do so well over the next 12 miles. It rather surprises me. And picking up another 300 pounds for his place today. And there's Kip Kosgei just finishing in 5th place behind him. And Froud closes 1 minute 38 seconds behind the leader. And Kosgei 1 minute 48 behind the leader. And now Katabi has taken the yellow vest. There's no question of that. We're just waiting to see by how much. But here they come now. And it's Kotov digging in there. His colleague Sokov in the yellow vest just behind him. Kotov coming through. Digging in. Kotov leading. And it's Kotov 2:24 behind the leaders. Katabi now in the yellow vest.
Well, exciting at the front, but 15 minutes later, one of the last to win, Steve Brace of Wales. He was really struggling. That's pure willpower getting him there. Just in front of the broom wagon, which claimed 7 today. They take Brace's time plus 5 minutes, but they live to race another day. Steve Brace fighting on, but he's badly blistered and ill. Great performance from all the athletes today on what was regarded as one of the toughest stages. That hill start really testing the athletes. A great finish too here in Grasmere. Stage 5 won by Delmir Dos Santos of Brazil. Tears yesterday, but a big smile today as he collected his commemorative stage winner's plate.
I was feeling good today because I don't feel really like I was run to yesterday. I was winning this stage yesterday. It was my worst day, I think, in England. But now it's okay. It's over. It's another day. I have to thinking about my race in the days who's come over to me, and I have to think my team, my race, in my body, and everything who is in front of me. Now, who is in back is in the back. It's over.
Now you have 2 plates as well.
Yeah. Yesterday I win the salad one, and today I win the lunch one.
A lot of the British athletes were happy with their performance too. They collected good times today and kept the pace as they wanted it.
We felt more comfortable. We were running at the same pace as we have done over the last 4 or 5 days. I ran most of the race with Jeff Smith today, and we had a conversation during the race which basically went along the lines that we didn't feel as though we were running any quicker, and the split time showed we weren't running any quicker than we have been doing, but we seemed to be that much closer to the rest of the groups, which can only seem to indicate that everybody seems to be coming back to us. because they're running slow, not because we're running any faster. And hopefully that'll come through in the next few days.
So let's take a look at the overall position after stage 5. A new leader, Alabi Katabi of Morocco. He takes the yellow vest from the Soviet athlete Sokov. But Dos Santos moves from 16th to 8th, gaining 132 on the leaders, British runners not in the top 10. Kevin Forster thought he could detect signs of foreign runners slowing up the pace, but Jerry Helm is still up there as the top British runner. He started the day 5:01 behind, now it's 8:26. Katabi's break made sure the pace wasn't at all slow. Kip Kosgei, 5th today on the stage, up 12 places, but lost 15 seconds off the lead time. David Moorcroft struggled yesterday. He's up 4 places, but down another 5 minutes, hampered by a bad blister. Tomorrow, well, we're still in the Lake District, and it's very wet indeed. The athletes will be hoping for drier conditions. That's stage 6, that's Windermere to Kendal, 9.3 miles. Today, well, it belonged to Delmir dos Santos of Brazil, who did his talking with his feet, not his fists. See you tomorrow. We've already witnessed many emotions in this race. For Delmir dos Santos, despair on Wednesday, ecstasy yesterday, as he raced first at the tape in Grasmere, home of English athletics. Kip Kosgei is one of 3 race leaders we've had in 2 days. Stripped of the yellow vest for unsporting behaviour, it went to Sokov of the Soviet Union. But now it's Katabi of Morocco who leads the field. Hello again. Well, the athletes in this Sun Life Great Race were celebrating last night. They've completed a quarter of the course that started in Glasgow and ends in London. Today is stage 6 of this unique event. There are 20 stages in all. It owes a lot to cycling, but they're on 2 legs and not 2 wheels. The athletes have responded so far with a magnificent performance. The pace has been testing, some say suicidal. The total mileage the athletes faced when they raced out of Glasgow last Sunday was 237. It was an international field of over 15 nationalities. And at the finish, 43-year-old Kip Kosgei became the first stage winner. On Monday, Kosgei in his yellow vest of race leader again blasted his way to the front. Katabi of Morocco went with him. It wasn't a particularly happy day for the pair of them. But the Kenyan charged to his 2nd stage win in Motherwell, still in Scotland. On the road to Annan, Kosgei went again. British athletes thought the pace was madness. Katabi was again the Kenyan shadow. At the end of 10 miles from Lockerbie, they were sprinting towards the finish. The Kenyan took it on a photograph. But there was drama in the last miles of stage 4. Kosgei, unhappy with Dos Santos of Brazil running behind him. Dos Santos tried to apologise, but the Kenyan struck out. The Kenyan went on, but Dos Santos was broken. At the end of the stage, the argument continued, Kosgei again making contact. The judge's penalty was first 2 minutes, then effectively 20. After reconsidering the Kenyan's crime, he was relegated to last place on the stage. It cost him the yellow vest. Many of the other athletes thought it should have cost him his place in the race. Sokov of the Soviet Union took the yellow vest for stage 5, and now the race was on in the Lake District. Magnificent scenery and magnificent performances from Dos Santos, Figueres of Mexico and Katabi. Dos Santos took the stage, Katabi took the yellow vest, and the race was on again. They line up today in Windermere, and believe it or not, it's a short course, only 9.3 miles. On average, they've been going over 10 miles a day, and they don't jog, they run. Weather conditions, well, yesterday it absolutely poured down. Today the athletes are hoping for something a little drier, but the forecast ahead is for showers. Let's take a look at the route. Glorious Windermere, the largest lake in the Lakeland National Park. Busy holiday time, of course, floods of tourists here today, enjoying the lake, boat trips, and of course, Lakeland hospitality. There's another climb in the King of the Hills section at 2.25 miles. Then on the B284 on the road to Crook, motorists will see the race at close quarters. The scenery is magnificent. And then into Kendal for what we hope will be a grandstand finish in the Market Square. It's 9.3 miles the route. It's stage 6 of the Sun Life Great Race. And there they are at the start line, waiting for the off. The Sun Life Great Race picking up real pace now. They've only completed 1/4. Away they go. The Lake District, also Wordsworth country, of course, and it takes me back. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Well, no doubt those words are familiar to our commentary team of Ian Stewart and Tom McNabb, a wordsmith by profession.
Yes, indeed, and I have never heard Wordsworth spoken with such grace, such elegance, and such total uncertainty. But no uncertainty here at the lead here. Number 101 right in the lead from the very beginning, and looking smooth and looking good. And that's Vladimir Kotov, the Soviet runner, and he's looked crisp all the way through the stages, hasn't he, Ian?
Yes, the one big thing about this man Katov is that whenever he gets to the front of this race, he always pushes it along. He doesn't seem to know what it's like to run easy. And there he is again. He's sort of just saying, OK, lads, let's just get on with it.
Well, he's got a bit of a pedigree, hasn't he? In 4th in the Olympic marathon in 1980, 2 hours 10 marathon runner. There's a bit of class there.
Oh, there certainly is. He's definitely a bit of an iron man of his sport. He's an army PE instructor by trade, and I don't think I'd like to be in his platoon at all.
Yes, he tells me he's spent 3 years in Czechoslovakia and 3 years in Poland training, presumably in the army, but knowing the Soviets, there wouldn't be much training in army terms, but a lot of heavy running. And just behind them, number 83, Carvalho.
So as the race leaves Windermere and starts to make its way to Kendal, it's a good opportunity to take a look at what these runners are actually competing for. £30,000 for the first place, all the way down to £1,000 in 10th place. That's a total of £99,000 in prize money for the individual overall placings in this Sun Life Great Race. A lot of money to go for. And this is how they stand at the moment. Katabi out there in front. The British athletes not concerned at the moment, they're out of the top 10. Dos Santos is up from 16th to 8th. He said this morning he'd wait to see how he felt before deciding how quickly to go today. Let's look at the rest of the field. Well, the sheep and beef farmer Bill Bedell from Shropshire, the second place British runner, Jerry Helm ahead of him. Bill very popular in the athletes' tent. Let's go down to 21st to 30th. 70% of them British athletes. Paul Evans going consistently well. Colin Reed's determined to get there. Well, let's have a look further down. Nick Rose is there, and there's the familiar name of Kip Kosgei. He's been struck with that penalty, 18 minutes now off the lead. Going further down again, Tony Simmons at 41 years of age in 43rd place, fighting to keep in this race. It's very hard for all the runners. David Moorcroft is still there, long way down, but enjoying the camaraderie, I think, of competing in this very first Sun Life Great Race. Now, Nigel Gates is in there, leader in the King of the Hills, a specialist in climbing. He'll attack every hill. The one today as well. He's sure to go for it. Steve Brace of Wales has a hole in his foot the size of the Mersey Tunnel, but he's more worried about his sickness at the moment. 8th in the field a few days ago. Now he's well down. Well, determined club runners from home and abroad, still there in the field. There's a definite honour in just getting there to Westminster, I think. Now, all these runners have 40 minutes to make up, but they're hanging on in there. Total running time of 5.5 hours, I think, when you add up how much they've been running.
And there we are, with Kotov still digging it out. He's a real animal, this fellow, isn't he? And he really digs in every leg. But just on his side, on the right of the screen as we look, is our King of the Hills, Nigel Gates.
Yes, Nigel's nicely tucked in there, as we are on a King of the Hills section at the moment. The gentleman with number 97 on the front of him, John Sinclair, he runs for the Boulder, Colorado club, and that's the first time he's visited the front of the race all week.
And just in the chasing group, there's number 64, Kip Kosgei. He won't be digging in for the King of the Hills at all. He'll just be cruising along behind and letting them do what they want in front of him. I think the battle for the King of the Hills is going up ahead with this group here.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see at the moment that the yellow jersey and the green jersey have taken off with this leading group. It seems that normally they would just leave them to get on with the King of the Hills, but Kotov is obviously now making ground on everybody.
So there they are, going for the 1 mile mark, leaders through it in a time of 5:15, and all the vests are there. The red vest, the yellow vest and the green vest. Like a set of traffic lights.
And just to explain the vest, the yellow vest, of course, is the leader in the race overall in terms of time. We're looking at Nigel Gates with the red vest in the middle. He is the King of the Hills. And the green vest is the leader, which is not on screen at present, is the leader in terms of points. Just behind, you'll see there, that's Sokov of the Soviet Union. He takes the green vest for the leader in total points in the race, running from 25 points down to 1 point. So they're all around there, but the man who's making the big hit is the King of the Hills here, Nigel Gates from Brighton and Hove Athletic Club.
Yes, this climb today, Tom, is a very long climb. It's certainly a lot climber than the previous one, a lot longer than the previous ones, and this should probably suit Nigel Gates, as he said he was normally used to climbing sort of 6 miles.
Yes, no sign yet of Derek Froud, who is a New Zealand runner running, I think, for Boulder. He dug in and won yesterday. It looks as if Nigel's making the big dig for this one.
So Nigel Gates starts now to move away if he can. Health club manager, his best performance first in the English mountain trial. He's really going to attack any sort of hill. I spoke to him this morning and asked him whether he had a look at the particular climb he got to attack today.
Yeah, it's quite similar to yesterday, a little bit longer, but the same altitude difference. It's going to be tough.
When do you really need to push it? Right at the start, or can you hold yourself for a final assault on it?
Yeah, I think the thing with hills is if you go over the red line, then you completely come apart. So, like yesterday, I mean, the guy really went for it. So I'm amazed he came fourth afterwards. I wasn't prepared to do that, so maybe I could have challenged him. But even with the King of the whole of this race, you have to pace yourself. Even the King of the Hills, I think you have to do that.
So there's tactics in this as well. It's a race within a race.
Well, I think that you've got to think about what you're doing, because I don't think too many people have thought about it. And where are we now? I don't know, day 6. I can't remember. But
quarter of the way through,
a quarter of the way through, yes. And there's a lot of people who aren't going to, want to carry on now. They're feeling really stiff. That 17 took the glycogen out of people's muscles, and now people are hitting the hills, and those muscle fibres are really complaining, especially as we said on those downhill stretches.
So really, we've not seen the true effects yet of this race.
I don't think we've seen the true effects yet, and that's where it's going to get interesting, because other stage races, the same person wins for a week. He can win for a week, and then we've never seen after that, and I don't think somebody can win for 3 weeks. So I think we are yet to see some changes in the overall classifications.
Well, Nigel Gates was talking about the muscle glycogen. Well, that's the fuel the athlete burns in his muscles to enable him to propel himself forward. And he's using plenty of that glycogen now as he really drives up that hill to try and hold on to his title of King of the Hills. Interesting, he was talking about Derek Froud yesterday, who won that particular section, the King of the Hills section yesterday. But Froud went on to finish 4th. Very difficult to do, because you build up so much fatigue in the muscles, Ian. It's very difficult to keep cruising along at a high pace for quite a while afterwards, isn't it?
Oh, it's extremely hard. But I would say that the gentleman sitting there behind Nigel Gates, Alabi Katabi in the yellow jersey, he was also well placed over that climb yesterday, and of course he went on to finish third. And it looks like he's going to be following Gates all the way over the top on this one as well.
Now Nigel here is going for £100 for this particular section, and at the end of the race there will be £1,000 for the King of the Hills title. So I think that's the one he's going for. I don't think he sees himself as a winner of the race overall. Although this man's a 28 minutes 19 second 10-kilometre runner. He's a pretty classy track runner, isn't he, Ian?
Oh, he's a class runner in his own right, that's for sure. But I think in this race here, he's just chosen that he's going to go for the King of the Hills. And as I say that, it looks like he's just going to go blasting on, really getting his head down here. He's stretched the whole field out. That leading bunch is definitely finding this very, very difficult to tag onto the back of him at the moment. I mean, what makes Gates so good at this is he's very, very, very small. He leans into the hills. He's quite stocky, very thick-set legs, quite fluid. And he's got the head that he doesn't sort of run into a red line situation. He takes his, he sort of gauges his effort from the bottom right the way to the top of the climbs. Some of these guys sort of just run themselves into oblivion almost halfway up.
It does look as if he's actually broken just about everybody but Katabi. And this is a real lung buster, the hills, isn't it, Ian? It is really a gutser to drive up these hills hard.
Yes, it is. He's waving there to Katabi to tell him to get the other side of the white line by the look of it. But it really is a very, very difficult thing to do.
Right, they're just very, very close to the 2nd-mile mark, and very soon they'll be getting close to the end of the King of the Hills section. A quarter of a mile to go, and the fight is really now on. Gates pushing it for the top of the hill.
Yes, and just behind him, the United States runner, number 97, John Sinclair. As Ian said, he hasn't really featured so far in the race at all, but he seems to be having a go at this particular section. But Nigel isn't having any of that. He's going for it. Probably about 70 seconds running to go, about 300 meters to go now. And he looks as if he's really got it now. He's running very fluidly, very easily. And the slope seems to have flattened out a bit now. Should be coming up in a moment to the final flag for the 200 meters. And Gates is really flowing away now in a much flatter section. Yeah, he's put on a good 10 meters. There's the green flag, 200 meters to go. And it looks as if Nigel Gates has put in some more points to hold on to that position, which he's held since the very beginning, since the very first hill section of King of the Hills. Running easily now, the slope's gone, and he's cruising in towards the white flag to take this King of the Hills section from Windermere into Kendal. There he is, cruising in. Katabi 20-30 meters behind. Up goes the hands, another £100 in the bank, and he will cruise now. Another 15 points going in to add to the points he's already scored, and to keep him with the red vest as King of the Hill. And he's had time to talk to our cameraman, which I don't think most of us would after making a run like that. And you notice he's easing off now, letting the waste products flow out of his muscles as Katabi passes.
It'll be interesting to see what Katabi does here, Tom, you know, whether he just sort of pushes on his own, or he sort of waits around to see what Gates and the bunch are going to do. But as I say that, it looks like he's just going to get on with it.
I suppose one of the advantages, Ian, of going up behind Gates is he gets clear of the rest of the field.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't seem to have tired him too much. I mean, Nigel was clearly whacked by it, but Katabi's quite happy.
Yes, I mean, it does take you away from the rest of the field, but of course you have the you definitely have the problems of sort of hanging on to Gates and then sort of being able to be out there alone for quite a long time.
That being said, the hill doesn't seem to have caused him much trouble, and he's running very well, very fluently. And many of the runners said to me that The major problem they're going to have here are the downhill sections. Those are the sections that really wear out the muscles. And here we have a little biography of Elabi Katabi.
Well, we have a very talented crew on this Sun Life Great Race. And via an interpreter, I asked Elabi if yesterday he ran with the intention of taking the yellow jersey of race leader.
He didn't go out yesterday with the intention of taking the yellow jersey. He just felt good, and it was a spontaneous thing. When he felt good, he went for it, but his intention is to stay feeling strong until the end of the race. And he doesn't think it's advisable to have the jersey for that length of time to try and defend it. So he just wants to maintain his strength tactically to finish well in Westminster.
What is your opinion of the pace so far? A lot of the British athletes say it's been suicidal.
Quelle est votre opinion sur la vitesse de la course jusqu'à maintenant?
Oui, c'est vrai, la vitesse elle est un peu rapide. Parce que vous voyez 19 km par kilomètre, à la moyenne de 19 km,5 hier et 19 km,4 par heure, je pense qu'il est rapide. Mais de toute manière, personne ne peut rien faire. On part, on suit toujours la peloton. Et parfois, quand je me sens la fatigue, je me repose. C'est comme j'ai fait pendant, je pense, à la 3e ou à la 4e étape. J'ai senti un peu de la fatigue et je me suis reposé pour reprendre un peu, puisque c'est une étape qui est longue.
He said it is a manic pace, and the average times yesterday would be hard to maintain. But he tactically approaches each day as it comes, and like on the 3rd and 4th stages, he felt a bit tired, so he relaxed a bit. But he doesn't think that that it's possible to maintain the average speeds they're keeping at the moment all the way to Westminster.
Well, Katabi will be saying "Vive la différence," because about 9 seconds back we have Katerina and Sinclair following, and that's about 40-50 meters at the speed.
Katabi striding away. Let's see how this race develops. Join us again after the break. 6 of the Sun Life Great Race, and there's the stage. 6 of the Sun Life Great Race, and there's the stage leader and the race leader, Elabi Katabi of Morocco. Confirmation of the result of the King of the Hills, Nigel Gates, taking it again. Look at the position after 3 hills, he's out there again in front. £1,000 for the overall winner, 10 hills to climb during this race.
And here's Elabi Katabi at his very best in downhill running. It's interesting that he isn't terribly strong on the uphill, Ian, but he is terrific on the downhill. He's got a specific skill of running very fast downhill, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. He seems to be able to get away from everybody going down the hills on the flat. But here we have Sinclair and Cavallino of Portugal. Sinclair is pushing along here. He seems as if he's having a good run today. He didn't do much earlier on in the race, but he certainly seems these Boulder lads have sort of split the team up, and they're all having a bit of a dig on separate days.
We've had reports from the course of Delmir dos Santos, who ran so well yesterday and the day before, is well down, and that rather surprises me. I would have thought he would maybe take a slightly easier day, but still keep in reasonable contact with the field, Ian.
Well, you would think so, but they ran extremely hard yesterday. The 2 Boulder lads looked to me as if they were almost racing each other as well as everybody else in the race. I couldn't quite make that out, to be honest. I mean, that big sprint they had yesterday at the finish couldn't have done them any good, and there was really no need for that at all. Well, so maybe they've got that sort of stiffness in the legs.
Now, Jerry Kiernan is about 30 seconds back from the leaders, and Jerry, from the start of this race, has always said he wants to get there to Westminster. I was talking to him this morning, and I asked him whether he was looking at the time between him and the leaders to make sure a gap didn't develop.
It's a mistake one could make. I was inclined to make that mistake the first couple of days. I was viewing everybody as being a potential winner, and I was covering every break. And so that yesterday, for the first time, I sat back and I said, look, I've got to run 5:10, 5:15, run my own type of race. And I ran it, and I felt very comfortable.
So you've got a tactic now, do you think, that if you can keep going to Westminster with a set pace, you know you'll be there or thereabouts?
Well, yes, but also, you know, I've got to keep an eye out for individuals, because it's the same people that are doing the same things every day. And I know that some of the British boys, Nick Rose and Mick McLeod, and them, think there's going to be, you know, an almighty bang up front. I'm not too sure. I think they're being very ultra cautious. I like to be reasonably well up there and give myself every chance.
So you're covering it just in case the athletes continue this amazing pace?
It is amazing pace, and I'm only 6 minutes off it. Really, I'm probably closer than I had intended to be. But you know, I feel good, and as long as I feel good, you know, I'm going to put in a 90% effort every day.
You give the impression of being very calm and collected about all this.
I'm well prepared for this. You know, it's not an undertaking one undertakes lightly. You know, it's I've always been aware of the intensity and the severity of the race. You know, I was under no illusions coming here, so I think I'm doing okay.
Do you think a lot of the athletes feel that if they complete the course, they will have achieved something rather spectacular?
I think, yes, I think a lot of the really good club runners feel that if they get to Westminster, they're doing something really tremendous. I would have expected more from some of the top class British names. You know, they really are an awful long way down in general classification, and people are just not going to lie down.
You think they've been too cautious?
I think they've been too cautious. I think they're finishing too fresh every day. I think they've got to, you know, you've got to finish reasonably tired every day. I mean, otherwise, you know, you're just going to be too far behind.
And maybe they're leaving it too late.
I think so. Yes.
Well, there's Katabi really pushing hard, and about 11 seconds back, we have number 80, which is Caterino. And 2 or 3 seconds behind him is Kip Kosgei. So it's interesting. I think Caterino may be pulling him in. You notice they're 1 minute 20 behind on overall classification. Now that is just a breath away in a race of this distance. And there we can just see in the left-hand corner, almost just missing him now, Kosgei on the left-hand side of the screen, and Caterino having a quick look back to see where he is. But this man at his very best in downhill running, Ian.
Yes, this man's quite surprised me, to be honest, because when you look at his actual times on the track, they're not particularly good. And yet here again, he's out there on front again today, and he's stretching everybody else. I mean, his Kosgei in third, who was he was winning this race hands down early on, and he seems now to be suffering at the hands of Katabi. And that surprises me, quite frankly.
Yes, his running lacks the fluency we've seen in previous days, doesn't it? It's a bit more staccato, a little bit uneven, and it doesn't look the same confident runner he was a couple of days ago.
Now, we're on stage 6 of this Sun Life Great Race, and we've worked out the average time per miles per stage of how the race has been run so far. Stage 4 was a long one, and maybe that's slightly false because the first couple of miles of that was in a neutralised zone just to get the runners away from the town. But look at those paces, they're absolutely incredible. To think that they might be able to keep that up to go all the way to Westminster, well, they're a very fit bunch of gentlemen indeed. Tom, what do you think of those figures?
Well, I think they're absolutely fantastic. When I spoke to runners before the race, they were talking about a 5 minutes 15 to 5 minutes 20 pace. And now, if we keep this going, we're looking at something very close to 5 minutes all the way. And that is really classy running when you consider you're knocking out 20 stages. It is terrific running. Well, there's Kosgei now lying in third spot. And there's the leader, Alabi Katabi of Morocco, again going down a very steep incline indeed. And he really is flying. He is motoring.
This man really seems to have taken this stage by the scruff of the neck and got on with the business. But there's a saying in the Tour de France, when you give somebody the yellow jersey, it totally inspires him. and it certainly looks like this has happened to Katabi. We've given him the yellow vest here, and he's away, and it certainly doesn't look like he's going to give it up easily. I mean, you can just see the man that's chasing him here in second place, and he's probably a good 150 metres to 200 metres back. And Katabi's taken all of that out of him on this downhill and very flat, fast running, which is obviously where he's very, very good at it. I mean, in comparison there, you've got Kosgei, who's not flowing at all. It almost looks like every stride's painful as he's coming down that hill, which it jolts you about, and it does knock your legs about, something terribly. But I mean, this man here on the front, it doesn't seem to be bothering him at all.
Yes, Kosgei looked very reserved and very restrained in his running there. Every stride checking, whereas he's flowing down the hills, Katabi, running with great power indeed.
Well, Katabi's going so quickly, he nearly caught up our motorcycle bike there, and he's through 5 miles now, and the time is 4:27. That is a record. 4:27 for the last mile. That's a record in the race so far.
Yes, that's the fastest mile in the race so far, Ray. Of course, it reflects the fact that it was fairly well downhill. But when you think it wasn't until about 1850 that 4 minutes 30 was broken from the mile, and these guys are doing 4:27 inside a race of this distance after 5 days of hard running. It just shows the sheer quality that we have in this Sun Life Great Race. And there we see Kosgei going through about 27 seconds back. That's about probably 150, 160 metres back.
Well, it looked like Kosgei was going to be caught there by that chasing bunch. He certainly doesn't look as if he's having one of his good days today. He seems as if he's in quite pain, really. Looking there back to second place, that's Catarino of Portugal. And there's a chasing group that's including Kunza and Paul Kipkoech, which are two very good class runners. And here's Jerry Kiernan here. He's going through there very nicely, sticking to his plan.
Yes, I think Jerry Kiernan's one of the ones I'll be looking for during the race at the later stages. He strikes me as someone who's got a plan, he's going to stick with it, and he's going to stick to the pace he's decided to run at, which of course is not inside 5 minutes for the mile.
Now he seems convinced that these guys are going to come back to him. He's hanging there about 6 minutes just over from the leaders, and he obviously doesn't think they can keep this sort of pace going.
And there is Sokov, the Soviet runner, is just over 1.5 minutes down from the leader. So I'm rather surprised he's that far back. I would have, and he may indeed lose his green jersey. That's the points total to Catarino, the way things are going. But again, in another downhill part of the course, Katabi is flowing. No sign. You can always tell by looking at the face. There's no sign of any fatigue, any tension there, Ian.
No, he looks very easy. It doesn't seem to be bothering him at all, this. It's made him almost superhuman. There, the gentleman that's catching Kosgei, he's number 93. That's O'Reilly from the Boulder, Colorado club. He seems to have come up from nowhere. He certainly wasn't with them when they went over the first climb.
No, but Mike O'Reilly's a 2:11 at his best, 2 hours 11 marathon runner. So there's a bit of class there.
Well, there's the distance that Katabi has between him and the second place runner. And as well as the individual award, there's also the team prize to go for. And Katabi will be thinking too about the Moroccan side, as Kosgei will be thinking about the Kenyan side. £20,000 for the winning team, all the way down to £2,000 for the 10th team. And some of the British clubs would like to get some of that money. Now, this is how they stand at the moment. The Soviet side out there in front. Moroccans in third. 8:41 behind the Soviet side. But Sokov isn't going so well today, so that might affect exactly what happens. Top British side, Red Counties Athletic Club. 57 minutes, though, behind the pace.
Yes, that 3 to 5 mile section was run in 14 minutes 25 for the 3 miles. Now, that is really high-class running indeed. So they're moving at a very high speed here.
Yes, Tom, I was talking to Dave Moorcroft this morning, and he said that what he couldn't get over was the actual running of this race has been world class on every stage. He said many people, including himself, thought he was going to come here and maybe they was going to have a little bit of a chat on the way and a bit of a jaunt down the country, but it's taken everybody by surprise.
And there we find Vladimir Kotov, the Soviet runner, back in 5th place on the road as it stands. And again, as I said before, he's a guy who never gives up, Ian, does he? He just clatters around the road every day, remorselessly.
No, you haven't beaten this guy till you've got over the line, I'm afraid, at the other end. He's certainly, he's no easy touch at all.
But neither then, of course, is Elabi Katabi, and he's really cutting it out on this run into Kendal today.
Heading towards the 6-mile mark now, and we'll be able to have a look at the time as the leader goes through. Katabi pushing very strongly. It looks very much like he's going to extend his lead. You never know what might happen in the last couple of miles. Through the 6-mile mark, 29:44 on the clock. Last mile in 4:55.
The stopwatch you see in the bottom left corner of the screen will give you the gap between the leader and the second runner. And there he goes through, 19 seconds behind. At this speed, that's probably about 100 meters, 110 meters.
The way Katabi's going here, Tommy, I can only see him actually increasing his lead. He seems to be just sort of on the flat and downhill, which he obviously does like a lot, and he looks very, very relaxed. He doesn't seem as if he's putting a great deal of effort.
But there we have the race leader, the yellow jersey, Katabi in the lead. In second place, Catarina of Portugal. Kosgei third, and Sinclair of the Boulder Running Club of Colorado, and the 5th man, Vladimir Kotov, the Soviet runner. He's just coming through the mile marker there, and he's 1 minute 20 seconds behind the leader, Katabi.
Yes, not only does this man look easy, it's the same, the old story, you know, if anybody does anything really well, they make it look easy. And this man, although he doesn't look as if he's trying that hard, he's really clipping along down this straight.
So Katabi heading towards what looks like another stage win and extending his lead in the Sun Life Great Race. Join us for the closing stages in a few moments. Welcome back, 7.5 miles into stage. Welcome back, 7.5 miles into stage 6 of the Sun Life Great Race. And here's the leader on the road and the overall leader, Elabi Katabi of Morocco. Now, a lot of the British runners have been amazed at the style of this man. And Britain's John Graham, in 50th place, 4 minutes back. I asked him his opinion of Katabi and his style.
Oh, he really looks tremendous. I mean, he's a hard man, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I just wondered, you know, like the two Boulder guys really hammering along yesterday. I mean, they had first and second basically sewn up, and then you seen Katabi coming back down that hill. And I ran down that, well, I didn't run down that hill, I walked down that hill because my legs were so sore. And these guys were running, what, 4:49s, 4:50 miles, which is amazing, you know, at this stage. I mean, I don't know, I mean, like, I think the Kosgei as well must be feeling it, their legs must be sore. There's no doubt about it.
Have people forgiven yet, or giving him another chance?
I think we have, really, at the end of the day. I mean, we're just getting on with our own races. I still think it leaves a sour taste in your mouth, basically, you know, what happened. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we're getting on. It's another day, it's another race. We just need to wait and see what the outcome is today again.
What about the Soviet athletes? Because they're there, they're very organised, they seem very compact, and they run together.
Yeah, but they're starting to slip back as well, if you notice that as well. There's one or two of them now just in front of us now. So they're starting to slip back as well. So I think Glasgow is hitting the dust as well, hopefully.
John, you seem very bright and breezy about this. Is the confidence that the British athletes are going to be there in Westminster?
Yes, definitely. I'm always bright and breezy like this before the start. Ask me after again.
Well, I don't think as Glasgow as most of these runners read it. It's perestroika, reconstruction, and they're certainly going to need a bit of reconstruction at the end of this stretch. But that is number 93 in white from Boulder Running Club, Mike O'Reilly, a 2 hours 11 marathon runner, Ian, so there's a bit of class there.
Yeah, there certainly is. He seemed to have run away from Kip Koskei, who has looked as if he's been having a bit of a rough time of it today. But this gentleman that we're on here, he isn't having a rough time at all. He seems to be growing in stature with almost every stride he takes.
Katabi heading through towards the 8-mile marker and looking almost certain now to extend his lead in this Sun Life Great Race. I'll give you a time as soon as he crosses it to get in there any second. Now, there he goes, 4:38 the last mile. Now, Tom, I noticed this morning, looking at all the athletes, they eat such a huge breakfast. In fact, the only person I've ever seen that eats a bigger breakfast than them is you. What do they do with all this?
Well, it's a part of storing up muscle glycogen, the more high-quality carbohydrate they take. And that doesn't mean the chocolate biscuits I saw you stuffing down your throat today, Ray. I mean the real high-quality pasta, potatoes, that kind of carbohydrate, that goes into the muscles and is stored as glycogen. And these guys stock up on it because they're using a fair amount of it on each stage of these races. Luckily, they're not quite reaching the stage that they reach in marathon running, where they burn into body fats, are they, Ian? Because that doesn't really come till about 20 miles.
No, these stages, in actual fact, are just about right on mileage in that department. They're sort of designed that they don't sort of hit the great glycogen depletion problems, and they're just sort of hovering between, I don't know, they're probably average between 12, 13 miles right across the board. So they're quite fortunate, really, that they don't have any massive, great long stages. In fact, they've got the worst behind them with that 17-miler. We're looking at the third man there on the road, and he passes 8 miles in 1:16 minutes down behind the leader here.
So 1:16, 1 minute 16, that's about 400 meters, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's about 400 meters, and as we look there, that's Catarino of Portugal, and he's jammed there in between them in the middle of no man's land. He's about 15 seconds back. He's obviously tried to get on the back of Katabi, but he's been dropped again, and he's there to be shot at by O'Reilly, so he's in a very difficult position there.
But we're now coming into the outskirts of Kendal, and inside the mile marker. And no lapse at all in this remorseless running. He's got the race by the grip of the throat here, Ian.
Yes, he certainly has. And I think the man who wishes he hadn't is probably Kip Koskei, because he's having a very bad time of it back there in 4th place, and possibly being chased down in the bunch. There's certainly nothing worse than that horrible feeling that you've given it all and you're going backwards, but you're still trying to sort of concentrate on catching the leaders. It's a bit of a hard position there. See, we're going downhill again here, and he's opening his lead up again from Catarino. He's almost out of sight completely. This boy really flies down these hills.
And they're chasing in third is Mike O'Reilly of Boulder Runners. And just behind him, I think about 80, 90 meters behind is Kip Koskei. And Koskei, I think, struggling now to maintain any sort of reasonable rhythm. But Katabi, they're in the lead.
Yes, Koskei's done well, actually, to stay that close to O'Reilly, to be honest. He's probably using him as a bit of a target to drag himself along the road, you know, just so he can sort of keep his concentration and stay there. Because if ever he sort of loses 50 or 60 meters on him, you'll then find he'll probably get swallowed up with the back markers that'll probably be aiming at him as well.
But Katabi still pouring it on here, no problems now. About 400 meters to go. That's about 70 seconds, 75 seconds at this speed. There on the downhill slope behind him, in third place, Mike O'Reilly from Boulder. But he knows he's won it now. The arm goes up as the population of Kendal come out to salute this fine runner with about 200 meters to go. A left turn, little left turn. There's the yellow flag for 200 just showing there. And this is very fine running indeed. There is no question we're seeing a runner here who may go on, I think, to tackle records in the 10-kilometre up to half marathon area. And it's going to be well inside 5 minutes a mile. And bearing in mind the amount of hills we had in this course, that is really absolutely marvellous running. But here he comes, Elabe Katabe, extending his lead in the yellow vest. Number 1, 44.08. Now Paulo Catarino from Portugal. Behind him, O'Reilly from the USA. Catarino 15 seconds down the leader. There's Kip Kosgei just making his left turn. And in comes O'Reilly in 3rd place. Just passes the finish. Now 32 seconds behind the leader. Kosgei coming through 35 seconds behind Katabe. Rios of Portugal coming in next. 44 seconds behind the leader. And now struggling a wee bit over the last 2 or 3 miles, Vladimir Kotov, the Soviet runner, coming in 56 seconds behind the leader. But I think he'll be happy with that. He stayed up. And now 2 Algerians coming in. They've run together pretty much most of the way. That's Boudina and Belhadji. Number 45 Boudina, number 41 Belhadji. And Sinclair from the United States just behind them, making a bit of a dig to try and make contact. But they come in just at 1:31 and 1:32 behind the leader. That's Boudina and Belhadji, with Sinclair just behind them at 1 minute 35 behind. Kovalov of Sporting Club. Jerry Kiernan coming in, 1 minute 40 behind the leaders. Paul Kipkoech coming in there at 1:52. He'll be happy with that. He stayed up every single stage and never looked in trouble. I really fancy him as a contender. Kevin Forster looking dead easy, 2 minutes 02 down. I think Kevin will be very happy with that run. He lies now in 18th place. But a very good run here for number 172. That's Mike Cadman of Wolverhampton and Bilston. Behind him, Nick Rose, number 120, age of 40, and Bill Bedell in 21st spot. 2 minutes 30 down the leader. Bill is going to be right into the finish. He's running very well. And here comes the green vest of Sokov, and it looks as if he's going to lose that to Catarino. I don't think he can be too happy with that run. He finished 23rd there, picks up only 3 points, and he was the actual points leader in the whole race. That was why he was wearing the green vest. And there's Dave Moorcroft. Hammy Cox just coming in, the Scottish runner. David Moorcroft had a bad run yesterday, but he's running well today. And Dave comes in just over 3 minutes down on the leader, Katabe. I think Dave will be happy with that run. He's going to make it to Coventry in his hometown, I think. And there's Jeff Smith. 3 minutes 17 seconds behind the leader. What a classy runner. He's run it close to world class at everything from mile to marathon. And there's Joseph Chalago, a steeplechaser, and behind him Brian Kirkwood of Scotland. Brian's run steadily and very good, solid, hard-working runner. Chalago coming in here. And Chalago, Brian Kirkwood just behind him from Scotland. And there's Colin Reitz, and I think Colin should be fairly happy with that. 3 minutes 07 behind the leaders.
But what a performance from Alabi Katabe, the Moroccan extending his lead at the top of the Sun Life Great Race. He trains with and is coached by the multi-record holder Saïd Awita. And after the race, Katabe was in buoyant and confident mood.
Dans l'avenir. Oui. Je ne peux pas dire dans quelle distance maintenant, mais je sais une surprise, oui.
he chose a rhythm today that where he would be comfortable, and he still has in the back of his mind that these stages that are still to come. But he is looking upon this race as something of a preparation, because he wants in the future to break a world record. He's not sure yet at what distance, but he knows in the back of his mind he wants to break a record.
But not such a good day for Kip Kosgei. The Kenyan finished fourth today, but picked up an injury soon after the start. He said he felt forced to hold back during today's stage.
Yeah, I've got problem with the chin splint here, so that's why I was not running well. I was just running on using one leg all the time.
Did it hamper you badly for the whole race or just halfway through?
From the start, all the way from the start.
For the British athletes, many again felt comfortable today, but some are still holding back, planning for Westminster. For others, the course is starting to take its toll.
I think I'll pack my bags and go home now. It's, I've never had anything like this in my life before. It's unbelievable.
You're not thinking of giving in?
No, I'm only joking, but about 2 miles to go, I could have easily stopped on the road because I've got some bad blisters and it was chafing all the time. And I was just running in pain, constant pain. Every time I put my foot down, I was waiting for it. The blisters moving about and that, you know, it's terrible.
So the full stage result sees only 56 seconds between the top 6 runners, the 2 Algerians sticking together. Other finish today, well, the green vest holder Sokoff didn't do at all well. Dos Santos obviously didn't feel so good either. Nigel Gates, after winning the hill climb, dropped back to 77th, but he still leads in the King of the Hills. Overall, Caterino moves from 4th to 2nd, but he lost 15 more seconds to Katabi today. Jerry Keenan in at 10, but lost a minute 40 off the yellow vest. In the points classification, Caterino of Portugal takes over from the Soviet sports instructor Sokov. Champagne on the podium today, but for others, there was another type of refreshment. But they may struggle to get Colin Reitz and the boys out of the pub in time for tomorrow. That'll be stage 7 of the Sun Life Great Race. See you then.
Champion wearing number 5 and Bitzner Ducret of France.